Hey there, hi there, ho there, and hello there, and welcome back to another exciting edition of the Cardinal Couple Radio Hour podcast, where we discuss the joy and excitement of UofL women's athletics. Right now, of course, it is a kind of a dead time on campus, although there is some stuff going on. We'll get into that in just a second. The three major sports we cover, though, are in kind of a hiatus right now in the fall. So we'll talk about their schedules coming up here in just a little bit. But as we like to do to start the show out, let's introduce the people that are on the broadcast today. And it'll be Case Hoskins, Jared Anderson, and myself. Let's go ahead and start with Jared. Jared, how are you and the Bentley doing this morning?
He's a handful, 5 month old puppy at this point, and beagles have a certain type of personality that includes being food motivated uh, and just having to be all up in your business. So we deal with that pretty regularly. But it was about nap time this morning, so thankfully he's in his crate and he's passed out, laying on his back, paws up in the air, and he seems pretty content at the moment.
I suppose I could be a beagle too because I'm food oriented. But enough on that. I don't bark, and my ears aren't nearly as long. But all right, Case, what's up with you this morning?
Oh, not much. I hit the golf course yesterday. A vendor took us out, and it was the first time I had swung in quite a while. Um, I had made Lindsay jealous because I told her I spent all day at the beach. Um, yeah, so it was a hot one out there.
Where'd you end up playing?
We played Hunting Creek, which it's in Prospect.
Oh yeah.
Oh, that's a nice
I,
course out there.
ironically, Lindsay and I had looked at a house there when we were moving back to Louisville. Had looked in Hunting Creek, but just the way that the lot sat and the driveway is a lower level garage, it wasn't going to be for us. But yeah, it's a nice course. It's tough. There's greenside bunkers on probably 16 of 18 holes.
Yeah, there's a lot of sand out there. Back in the days when I sold coffee, I had Hunting Creek Country Club as one of my coffee accounts,
Nice.
and I used to deliver there once a week and meet with the chef. And their restaurant kind of kitchen area overlooks the golf course, and it's really cool just to walk in there and then the dining room tables are there and everything, and then you can just look at these big plate glass windows and see the course below. So that's pretty cool. They never could seem to keep a good chef, though. Not sure who's currently doing it, but when I delivered coffee to them over the years, I had to indoctrinate three chefs at that time. So that's I guess that's the way it goes. You get to be good at something, then somebody offers you more money to go there. But as for me, just another week. Been kind of a little bit busy. We are going to actually be off next week for the 4th of July, and also the wife and I headed down to Gatlinburg for a few days. Want to go down there and visit with some friends who we saw last time I was down there, who invited us to come back down for their 4th of July celebration that they have. They actually have theirs in Sevierville, which is just north of Gatlinburg, where they live. But we chose not to stay in Sevierville or with them. We have a nice little place in Gatlinburg that we like to stay, and we're going back there. And of course, we'll do some dining as well. Otherwise, in other restaurants that we've come to like down there, and probably go have a few brews at the Fox and Hounds and also at the Rampant Lion. Two favorite places where I like to, as they say, hoist one. So we'll get all that done. But
So no cabin for you down there.
no, we don't do the cabins, Jared. There's a little motel out on the south side of town called the Sleepy Bear. It's very inexpensive. It's right by the creek, and they have balconies overlooking the creek, so you can sit out there. And it's very pleasant to kind of just sit out there and watch the creek roll by, and the deer that come up to drink out of the creek, and occasionally you'll see a snake slither across the water. And uh, one night we were out there. This was just this summer. We heard a huge commotion back out on our deck and didn't know what was going on out there. and Sonia went over and looked through the peephole and saw a bear jumping down from our porch. So I don't know if he had smelled the food in our room or whatever, but it had clawed at the door and had clawed at the actual wrought iron around the balcony, and then they just decided, hey, guess I can't get in, I'm gonna leave then, and took off. But he made quite a bit of noise doing so.
Oh yeah, bears have a fairly strong sense of smell, and it's funny you mentioned dealing with bears out in Gatlinburg. We're going to be there in exactly a year from now. Big family trip with Katie's family and mine, so 8 of us in about a 5-bed, 5.5 bath cabin. So yeah, and there's all sorts of rules they've already sent over about keeping doors locked and windows up and not throwing food outside for the bears. There's all sorts of stuff that they don't want the bears causing any damage to the facilities or putting anybody at risk.
The facilities or the people.
Or the people, yeah, that's very important. We did see a couple. We like to drive through the actual area down there and go to Cades Cove, which is on kind of I guess you would call maybe west of Gatlinburg, but it's a nice little circular 12-mile drive that you start in the same place, and you get to see old time houses and big meadows and meadows with deer and also meadows with bear in them. And they have warned you, do not roll down the windows. This is bear territory in certain parts of it. And although we did not have one approach our vehicle, we stopped at the ranger station back there, and the guy was telling us all kinds of stories about bears coming up and knocking at windows because they had smelled fast food in cars. So I mean, if the bear pulls up to a drive-through window, what are you going to do? You're going to serve him. That's certainly not a problem. These bears decided that they wanted to knock out the window and get theirs free. All right. So anyway, fun times for all as we get through this summer, and certainly something big going on at UofL today. Not one of the major 3 sports that we cover in the fall happening, but there is a ceremony going on campus today in between the softball field and the track field over there in that little plaza, which they had actually named that plaza. I wouldn't realize that they had named that plaza down there, but it's called the Lenny Lyles Plaza now. And it's between Cardinal Park and Ulmer Stadium. And Tom Jurich is being honored down there today. And basically, I guess we could talk a little bit about this. I think it's kind of a overdue honor, but kind of a strange honor indeed that they basically ran Jurich off with I would call malintent a few years back, and now they're bringing him back to honor him. So, what do you say about this, guys? What do you think?
Uh, Obviously, it's long overdue, but also just with how the departure went and all the overall situation that's happened, I guess over or about 10 years ago, you kind of wanted that waiting period to maybe let some of the hurt feelings wear down, and even for George to be willing to come back to campus took quite a bit of time. But it's long overdue, and what he's been able to do for the athletics department and facilities, the programs, the scholarships as a whole. I think just renaming part of Floyd Street isn't really enough, in my opinion, but it's a start.
Case, what do you think on the matter of Tom Jurich's way?
Yeah,
Is it overdue?
Oh, it's definitely. I don't know about overdue. It's deserved. It's, we talked last week about it a bit, and just the preeminence that Tom Jurich had on the program, that all of the prestige that Louisville can point to down that road, with the amazing facilities and all that was done, that's because of him. And you look back, like Jared said, almost 10 years ago, and the university was in a no-win situation, right? Like, you don't want to have to get rid of Tom Jurich. you look at what was going on and you say, like, he was not the problem. But when you are facing charges of lack of institutional control, that's not just one person, right? Like, the buck doesn't stop with just the coach. And it, we already have seen that Rick Pitino has. I don't think that there's a ton of bad blood there. I think that he knew the situation. He recognized Louisville had to do what they had to do, and part ways. Tom Jurich was a casualty of what happened with the basketball program and what was going on with the university at large, with Ramsey at that time. And so, when you're cleaning house, sometimes some mementos get thrown away that just happen to be in a box with mostly junk. And I think that's kind of what happened, which is why, like Jared mentioned, it's taken a while for Jurich to want to get back on campus. I think that he felt very hard done, and to some extent, he was. But the university had to do what they had to do at that time. Otherwise, the NCAA's targeting of UofL would have been somehow worse than it continues to be. But yeah, I'm happy to see the two parties appearing to be mending fences.
Yeah, I think it's an important move too, because just the other day we were down there. Sonny and I went down to visit a friend that doesn't live too far from off campus. And while we were at it, I told Sonny, I said, let's go in this back way and drive past, the Lynn Stadium, and let's drive by the lacrosse field, and let's drive by. And I pointed each one after and said, George put this here. George made sure this got built. And then just to right and left, all the way down until we basically got to the end where Elmer Stadium is. And she was amazed. She goes, I never realized, and she said, I lived through it, but I never realized that George was responsible for all this. But he was. I mean, basically, we were, although fairly successful in some things, Tom George came in and just basically said, give me money, I will build it, and they will show up. And it turned out to be true. He took us out of an antiquated football stadium on the fairgrounds property and built the wonderful Cardinal Stadium, where what they get upwards of 50,000 for home games now. It's a wild area during tailgate time, and just the list goes on and on and on about what George did. So certainly a man that deserves to be honored, and certainly a man that also, on a personal note, when I was writing for another columnist, and I was sending a lot of women's articles to him, and he basically told me, I can't handle everything you're sending me. You need to start your own website. And one of the first people I went to talk to about that is Tom George. And he was approachable. I basically told him, Tom, I'm thinking about starting a women's sports site. He gave me his full blessing. He said, anything I can do to help you do it. He said, talk to Julie Herman. She'll be a big help to you as well. He said, we can't do it here because we have so many other things going on. He says, but I bet that you will get a lot of hits. And he was right. We got a ton of hits to start out with.
Somebody's got a hit on their
and my phone's going off here.
He's blowing up your phone right now.
That's a hit ringtone.
Tom's calling me to say, keep talking about me. I love it. How about that? Apt timing. But yeah, so that was something that, meant a lot to me, that I knew that, basically he wouldn't be, trying to undermine what we were doing or anything, or criticize it. he was full in favor of it because we were talking about women's sports at a time when no one else hardly was, guys. And today, everybody's trying to get their fingers and their hands into the women's sports scene. But remember who was first. Just remember who was first. But there's also congratulations to Tom on his day. We're certainly grateful for what you did in your time on campus, Tom. To get into the meat and bones of the show now, we were basically going to talk about scheduling today. It's you may or may not know the three women's sports that we cover very, uh, I guess the most here: women's soccer, volleyball, and field hockey. All have schedules out now, and the action actually begins on August 14th. Although not on campus, when our women's soccer team goes to Auburn for a match. So let's go ahead and kind of look at I guess, women's soccer first, guys. The cards open up with two on the road, August 14th at Auburn, and then they'll go August 17th to Vanderbilt. Thoughts on these two openers? The cards, unlike the other two sports, opening on the road.
I think the biggest point to note, I guess, here is the fact that they are starting this season on the road. We've become so accustomed to women's soccer, their entire non-conference schedule, with the exception of maybe a match or two, has been played at Linton Stadium for the last several years. So that is certainly a big switch up, but then you are kind of beefing up your non-conference schedule as well. Now, Auburn and Vanderbilt may not be the top of the SEC, but when you get into your Power Four conferences, anybody you go up against is going to be quite a challenge.
Case after that, those two openings, and then I'll let you continue there. But after those two openings, the cards come home. They leave once to go to FSU, but they play the rest of August and all of September at Lynn Stadium. So, thoughts on that and other things you were thinking of, Case?
Yeah, when we talked about it last week, I didn't consider how somewhat frustrating it is for UofL to go on the road to open the season with two SEC teams, and neither of those be the University of Kentucky. It is one of those frustrating things about the unique scheduling of men's and women's soccer, that we don't play UK every single season in both those sports. They're our rival. Like, you look at how we hardly ever play Cincinnati anymore in the primary sports, and you say that's a lost rivalry. But UK is not a lost rivalry. We play them in pretty much everything else. It, to me, is ridiculous that we don't have them as an annual matchup in soccer, and so that is annoying. But it is what it is. Would I want to go on the road to play them to start the season? No, but whatever. Rather play them than Auburn or Vandy. So, and to your other point about they play pretty much every game at home for the first 2 months of the year, after those two road openers, and then opening the conference schedule on the road at Florida State. That is a lot of home games. You look at the schedule and you think, man, maybe we could go to Boston College in early September or in late August. Maybe we could go up to South Bend at that time. It's still very hot and muggy here in September. And so, yes, you get to play those games at home, but man, that is kind of brutal scheduling. That not just because you're playing 5 of your last 7 games on the road in general, but that you're really playing at home in the weather worst part of the year. At least they get to go to SM or no, and then they host SMU at the end of October. And so you're like, we couldn't go to SMU where it might be a little bit warmer on the day before Halloween. So yeah, that's a little bit weird from the scheduling perspective, just because it seems very front loaded. Soccer is one where they don't do the travel partner games. They play a lot fewer conference games than the other sports. And we talked last week about how it's very gettable, this schedule. So if you can survive against Florida State, come home and maybe steal something against Virginia Tech, then you get Clemson and Miami at home, and you could be in a position where Louisville is sitting on, somewhere between 5 and 8 points after 4 games. That'd be a decent spot to be in, on their way to trying to get back to the ACC and NCAA tournaments.
And just kind of looking at the schedule in itself after those 2 openers on the road, going to Auburn and then going to Vandy, the Cards actually come in and play 6 straight non-conference games at home, ending out August by playing Detroit Mercy and then Wright State. And then on the final day of August, Coastal Carolina. Certainly not powerhouses, no, all mid-majors. But maybe after, spending your time playing the SEC, maybe you need a break like that. Because after that, you get Kent State and Dayton. And Dayton has beaten us in women's soccer before. And so, Jared, just looking at that first half of the schedule, you're looking at basically 8 games there before Florida State. What do you think? Could the Cards possibly, go as well as maybe 6-2 or 7-1?
I guess it depends how healthy the team is. It seems like year after year, as the season progresses, we see the number of players that are no longer dressed for the match grows. I don't know what the issue has been with injuries in the past, but I certainly hope we see that gets maybe fixed and cleaned up, as well as I just want to see us be competitive. Kind of been disappointed just with the overall play of the team for the last several years, because I remember the days where we used to be top 25 and we were making NCAA tournament, and to me, making the NCAA tournament should just be kind of bottom line goal to hit.
Absolutely, and I will be I will get in touch with the SID for women's soccer, which is also mapped to the basketball ID and women's basketball ID, and see if I can get down to see Karen Ferguson Days maybe about a month before the schedule starts or so, as I've tried to do every year, and I've been successful every year in doing so, even back in before they had the fall sports days where they brought in women's soccer and a couple of the other fall sports. I was always able to get down there and have an interview with Karen Ferguson Days that I was happy to put on the website and happy to play back and stuff. And we learned a lot about the program each year. I look forward to that, but I also got to wonder, guys, after last season, is Karen kind of dancing on a tightrope right now?
I've kind of wondered if she's been contemplating retirement or not. As the ACC continues to grow and becomes harder and harder to compete with, and when you've looked at Lynn Stadium, really hasn't made any upgrades to their facilities since it opened, and you start to see the cracks and structures over time, just as things settle and you run into just different issues. But also, UofL doesn't compete very well in terms of the NIL and kind of the financial market for student athletes with today's day and age. So we're not going to be able to keep the best of the best anymore. They're going to go somewhere that
in the low major sports. You should clarify, because we are competitive in some of the other sports.
They are great when it comes to football, men's basketball, women's basketball, maybe even a little bit baseball, volleyball wise. But once you get beyond that, there's no investment at all.
Yeah,
I think our top softball player maybe made like $500 last year NIL.
Yeah, no, it is embarrassing. What is happening in some of the sports like women's soccer, like softball, but yeah, we don't want to lose the value that we're giving to the, just kind of basically like increase the value to the others. Cause
and kind of when you take a look here, Case, at what's going on with the actual ACC part of the schedule, there's some big names missing from here. North Carolina, we're not playing them, although we are going to NC State. There is no North Carolina on the schedule. Also, I don't see Syracuse on the schedule anywhere. So
that's more of a loss than a gain for us.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, both are actually losses for us. So when you look at it, looking at California, looking at Stanford, do I see them on the schedule? No. None of the West Coast schools are out there as well. So was it hand-picked for us, or did we hand-pick out who we wanted to play, or did the ACC just start blindly assigning stuff?
So you escape Duke, Carolina, and Stanford, right? Like, you don't have to play those teams. You don't get to play Cal or Syracuse. You still have to play Florida State, and you have to play Virginia, and you have to play Tech. But Louisville finished 64th in. And we don't have to play Pitt. Louisville finished 64th in RPI last season. SMU was 54th. Clemson was 59th. Boston College was 63rd. You look at a lot of the teams that Louisville gets to play. Miami was 124th. So, like I said, Syracuse is a bit of a loss. You don't get to play them. They were 127. I think that was worst in the ACC. No, NC State was worse last season. NC State was 171st. So some of these games, they're very winnable games, and it would be nice to succeed in them. And then you look at the top of the schedule against the non-conference teams, and there's a real chance for Louisville to probably. There is a strong possibility that Louisville is going to start the season 0-2. I do not want us to overreact to that. The SEC was pretty good in women's soccer last year, which was a bit of a surprise, but Auburn finished the season 27th in RPI. Vandy finished the season 26th. We're playing both of them on the road. Okay, if we go 0-2, let's not sky is falling it. What we need to see is Louisville to turn around, react to that with positive outcomes in the next games. Because Detroit Mercy was like 205th, Wright State 309th, USC Upstate 155, Kent State 121, and then Dayton 52nd. So like we said, Dayton is going to be a challenge. You do get to play them at home, though. So that non-conference schedule, just have to keep your confidence up and not get too down about what might be an unfortunate start with two SEC teams on the road, and then just build up to move into that. We're gonna see a test of Louisville's resolve, both in the way that the overall season starts and the way that the conference season starts. Going on the road to Florida State and then hosting Virginia Tech. Those don't bode super great for UofL. But what you have to do is then turn around and respond well with games against Clemson and Miami. So it might be a season of ebbs and flows, but if Louisville can find some offense, they return the entire defensive starting lineup, including the back two midfielders. If Huckabee and A.G. Gibson stay back there. So yeah, the defense should remain as solid as it was last season, and we have seen some changes in the positions at the front. Some losses, some gains, and we'll see kind of what that means for UofL's offense. But if the offense can react, or if the offense can provide a little bit more juice, and the defense can be as solid as they were last season, we were knocking on the door of the NCAA tournament with an RPI of 64, and so maybe we can make some noise.
Jared, you take a look at this 10 conference games out of a possible 19 opponents, which, we obviously we're not playing the whole schedule. SEC is tough to start with, but then after that, kind of a cakewalk until we get to Florida State. It's your thoughts on the first half of the schedule?
It's another non-conference schedule that you expect to come out of probably with approximately like a 750 win percentage, or that you hope to. And we've seen that UofL's had an easier non-conference schedule for several years due to the demanding schedule once you get to the AC slate of it, and just how good every ACC team is. Case covered it already with just how grueling it's going to be, and the RPI levels and just rankings for many of the ACC teams we've looked at already. And it doesn't get any easier, so sometimes adding a few hopeful bunny matches in there to just build up some extra wins is nice, because one of the things NCAA tournament requires is you have to have at least a 500 win percent or better to qualify for the NCAA tournament, and you don't want to put yourself in a position where you don't even meet that criteria because you couldn't handle your non-conference slate.
If we're able to go 500 in conference, is it a chance that we could get into the NCAA tournament then, guys?
If
absolutely.
If we're 500 in conference, I would say we are in the NCAA tournament. Unless they expand the ACC tournament, 500 isn't going to get us there.
And then the actual ACC tournament itself, I didn't find any information on that. So maybe you guys could kind of fill me in on where that is and when that is.
I believe it's still just the top 6, which doesn't make much sense.
Yeah,
that's
ridiculous.
Right.
Why can't you go to 12? And if you do 12, you give your top 4 teams the bye, and then your bottom 4 teams in the conference just don't qualify.
There are 20 teams in the league.
When you stop and think about it, there are 20 teams now.
Less than a third of the teams make the tournament. It's ridiculous.
And certainly more than 6 teams should, and I say this with quotation marks, should get into the actual NCAA tournament. But limiting the ACC tournament to just 6 teams is archaic. It's something that needs to be addressed and changed. But those that have the powerhouses may not want to. I'll just kind of leave it there.
No, the ACC don't want to spend the money to open up and allow more teams to make the tournament.
Yeah. So, damned if you do, damned if you don't kind of thing. Also beginning, and this one starts on August 22nd when we scrimmage Bellarmine, the Louisville field hockey schedule, as the Cards will actually start out in field hockey with 2 scrimmages. The first one against Bellarmine, and then 2 days later they'll scrimmage against Miami of Ohio. After that, they get into the schedule itself, and starting out pretty rough here, looks like, with a match against Michigan State. At least we do get them over at the field hockey facility on campus at Traeger. But Michigan State seems kind of like a brutal way to start this schedule, guys.
Yeah, but Sauer has always been in the mindset of, I'm going to have a tough schedule. I've got a great team. I've got a lot of talent. They're at the level that they can compete against the highest quality of opponents. So she doesn't worry as much about having to play a grueling non-conference schedule, because she believes her team can handle it, and they're good enough that it'll allow them to develop and get better.
And I haven't looked recently just to see how many teams are actually competing in ACC field hockey. I know that as far as the Cards go, though, they'll actually be playing, I think, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 8 opponents, right?
There are nine 9 ACC field hockey teams now.
Oh, so
we play
we're
all of
playing
them.
everybody except ourselves.
Mhm.
Okay, that's
It's
fine.
when we expanded. So we previously played 6 conference games. There were 7 teams. When we expanded, we added Cal and Stanford. SMU doesn't host field hockey, so just a straight expansion to the 8-game schedule. If they expand again, or if more teams start to sponsor field hockey, I think that the ACC will have to look at what they do, because I don't think you expand beyond an 8-game conference schedule. Just given the number of games that you play total and the quality of the ACC, you want to get as many teams into a small NCAA tournament field as you can. And if you play 10 conference games, for example, and you beat the crap out of each other for the whole year, then you're not going to get a bunch of teams in the tournament. So.
And I think, and you guys can check me on this, but I think that it's been in NCAA tournament time for the field hockey. Not a huge field. It's around 16, 18 teams maybe. I'm not sure what it is for 2025, but they certainly don't open it up as much as like women's soccer or women's basketball would for the field hockey tournament.
No, and I haven't been able to really figure out why they haven't looked at expanding the NCAA field hockey tournament yet, other than the fact that the NCAA just doesn't want to invest money, because it's not a sport that makes a profit and you end up coming out in the red at the end of the season. But other than that, I mean, yeah, 18 teams, I believe, is what actually made it officially last year. Well, why can't you at least open it up to 24 or 32? Because, being in the top 25 and not making the NCAA tournament is kind of bizarre.
Yeah, I think they do it based on a percentage of teams, percentage of sponsored teams. So, you look at basketball, women's soccer. They've got over 300 something teams. So, 64 team tournament is roughly 20%. There are 82 teams that have a field hockey RPI, according to the NCAA website. So 18 out of 82 is 22%. So it's roughly in line with those other sports. So I think the reason for no tournament expansion is, they've just got the number that they're keeping in mind there. But it does hurt, because you look at it and you say, yeah, if we have a good team, we've got a good season, and then you don't make it. Louisville last year could not make that claim, right? Like, they were 35th in RPI. They went 6-11. It was a down year, but yeah, I could see you pitch and say, why don't we expand to, I don't know, why not at least expand to 20? Right now you basically play the Sweet 16, and then there are 2 play-in games outside of that. You could at least expand to 20, and you could have a play-in game in all 4 corners of the bracket. But yeah, they're not going to go to 32, right? They don't fill out the entire next bracket for sure.
Yeah, for sure. It is an interesting dilemma, but in past years, of course, Justine Sari's come up with very, very strong field hockey squads, but a drop off last year. Jared, you followed as closely as I do. You're usually at just about every home game taking photos. I try to get to the press box every time I can. What's Sauer got to do basically to turn this team back around and get them on the NCAA eligible run?
Last season, she hinted even early before the season started that it's a young squad, including a lot of faces that are going to be expected to play an increased role with a lot more responsibility, and that's due to you had many players graduate, plus you still had the leftover of the 5th years who had gotten that COVID eligibility year that also graduated in that span. So you lost about 8-9 impactful players just in one season. It happens, not a big deal in my opinion. But I think she's just, she's been very defensive minded, very defensive strong. Team may not have been super great defensively last year. I think they just get back to cleaning that up.
You take a look at some of the players that basically are returning that were essential in last year's lineup. Of course, you had Sophia Parker, Lauren Masters, Chloe Plum obviously was very, very important to the team. Tatum Kroon saw some time out of the Netherlands. Then moving on down, Emily Eaton saw some playing time as well. And basically, after that, you have to go down to Izzy Bianco. Of course, she was very important to the team in what she did. Uh, Chloe Kasupi played some. She was fairly important to the team, but I think one of the things you have to worry about whenever you take a look at field hockey is who's your goalkeeper going to be. Last year you had Emily Young back in there. What do they do this year?
I think if I remember correctly, Emily Young was a true freshman as keeper last year. I thought she did pretty solid as a freshman keeper. That I would, at least give her the nod early part of the season, as long as she's been proving herself during the off-season workouts and performances, and just see what you can do to continue to build somebody that you can have for the next few years.
Yeah, they've got her listed as a junior, so.
Alessia Sakuda was the true freshman last year.
Yeah, and she is back. But once you get past those two, I was kind of scan.
They're the only two.
The roster, those aren't the only two. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're right on that. That will be on this team, and I think what you see here, guys, more than maybe some of the other sports, is that there really is a strong international presence in field hockey. And what's the reasoning behind that, guys?
I think that's just been the focus for Sowry and how she recruits. With her being Australian and having a Debbie who's also an international-based coach. Plus, field hockey is so much bigger in Europe than it is in the United States still, that if you want to get the best players, you're going to have to go outside of the U.S. to pull them in.
Yeah, it's that, and I think you look at it from the player's perspective as well. Field hockey is an Olympic sport. A lot of players want to get as much work as they can, and United States collegiate field hockey is a very competitive training ground. I don't necessarily know what the club ecosystem is in a lot of the European or African or Central Asian areas where field hockey can be popular. I don't know what the club situation is. Surely they could stay home, but if you come to the U.S., you're going to get to play against the best players in the United States. You're going to get to play against some of the best players internationally that are in your same age group. And you know that because of that, the scouts from many of the national teams are paying attention to the collegiate ranks. And so I think it's a really good opportunity to show what you can do individually against top competition. And I think that is what makes the recruiting bed available. And then, like Jared mentioned, the fact that you do have an international coach helps her to be able to encourage international players to come to UofL and provide feedback on what it's like to be in the city of Louisville and the resources that we can provide and have that shared experience.
Yeah, we did also not mention this earlier, but it would be important to point out that Sowry has brought in a new associate coach to the program as well, in Mike Pallister. And the name was not familiar with me until basically I saw the announcement. Guys, what can you tell me about this new associate coach that we've got on this field hockey team now?
Players love him. I ran into some of the players out at baseball late in the season, and then the super regional, and they absolutely love him. Already a big fan of him just a month or two in, and they're excited to see what he's going to be able to do for him. And it sounds like they all kind of knew Will was going to be leaving to go to Maryland before it happened, anyways. So it's nice that the team wasn't really caught off guard and caught by surprise, and that they're already a fan of the new assistant coach.
It is indeed, for sure. When you take a look at some of the names that are coming back for field hockey, and then we'll move on here a little bit. Players coming back like obviously Bianco, Plum, Masters, Woolerton, all very very essential players on this team, guys. Is it Plum's year to kind of just take over and run away with the whole ball of wax here, Jared?
I hope so. I don't think her quickness and ball handling skills have been as strong as her older sister Amy's have been. However, Amy was also a fifth-year senior, and Chloe was just a junior, so she's got more time to develop still. But I think if falls within the family, I think she's got a really good chance to be just as good as Amy, if not better.
Yeah, I think when we see the development of Plum alongside Lauren Masters and Sophia Parker, and then what we see as far as the next step of development for Tyler Everslodge and Riley Woolerton as well, two other names that made their presence known on the offensive side. I think just all of those players getting another year under their belt, this being their second year without Amy Plum on the field, I believe. She is still in the coaching staff, if I remember correctly. Although she's not listed on the roster as being part of the team. But I want to say that she was still associated. But just another year for them to get to gel as a unit, and continue to push forward in the new era of no Chloe Plum or no Amy Plum, and see what they can do. I think that similar to women's soccer last season, a lot of it was head scratching about like, why aren't we scoring goals? we are capable of scoring goals. What is happening? So hopefully we have less of that this season.
We certainly would look forward to see what field hockey can do, whether they can get back into the elite in the rare air. Yeah, certainly with the schedule that they've got lined up, certainly in the coaching staff, I think that they will probably be able to improve upon last year's record. But that leaves volleyball to talk about. It's the other fall sport that we cover quite a bit. And certainly when you take a look at volleyball, you have to take a look at the successes that the team had last year right off the bat. And so how do they build on this? A new coach, obviously, with Danny Busboom Kelly going to Nebraska, Dan Meske coming in. Jared, I know you get out there a lot. Case you follow it pretty closely as well. How does Dan keep this team up in the elite air?
I'm not really worried. I think Dan's a phenomenal coach, and we all knew at some point he was going to take over anyways once Danny went to Nebraska. He is an excellent in-game adjustment type coach. Danny was more the preparation on the front end that you wouldn't really see when it was regulation game time. But he was able to keep pretty much the entire team together, as well as bring in some very key pieces. One of the top outside hitters in the country, Chloe Chicoin, coming in, and then one of the top defensive specialists that was out of high school in Hannah Kinney. Who's going to give Camden Strand a run for her money with that defensive specialist libero position? But Hannah Kinney, like Elena Scott, was a setter in high school. So you kind of run that cheat code if you've got an unofficial extra setter in your rotation when you get to some of your out-of-system balls.
And with the dual libero position, you may just see both of them running out there at different times.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I think we could see that too.
There used to be a lot of talk about why they're not using the 6-2. there's going to be a chance that they could do that this year, eh?
No,
Yeah,
I meant with you can have two liberos jerseys on the roster, which was not a thing that you could have before. So I think depending on the situation, maybe you say we need some setting help, or maybe we need some additional defensive help in any given match or in any given situation, which gives you some more of that flexibility. For the schedule, though, I mean it's interesting. Coming off of a season where you made the championship game, and Louisville is not playing in one of the premier kind of season opening events. So a little unusual there, but Louisville will open with the Cardinal Classic, so they get to play in L&N to start the season, taking on Auburn, Morehead State, and St. John's. Not a whole lot to be concerned about there. Should be a pretty straightforward opener, which is good. Let Dan Meskey and this team get their feet under them. Like Jared said, you maintain the continuity. Meskey was already in the program. The volleyball team is kind of on an inertial path, right? Like it's not going to change. It seems it shouldn't change unless there's some outside influence, and that's not what we have, right? Like Danny Busman Kelly leaving, a new coach coming in, it was not really an outside influence on that momentum because Dan Meskey was an inside hire. So you see those three openers before they bring Illinois into the Yum Center, which will be a good way to kind of get the marquee portion of the season underway. Will be very nice to get to face Illinois at home, hopefully in front of a big crowd, because you've got a Sunday afternoon game there. Because then you're going to go on the road, and you're going to play some tough matches. They're going to go to Fort Worth and play Texas in what is functionally a neutral site match.
So it's a wonder because they're calling it a neutral site, but it's in the heart of Texas.
Well, but Texas, UT is in Austin. They're not in Dallas-Fort Worth. So it is a neutral site, right? But the funny thing, Louisville does not really get to play a neutral site game anywhere in Louisville because they've got like 3 home arenas. So, I mean, you would call, if Louisville was playing, I don't know, if Nebraska would be a bad example, but like if Oregon came to Kentucky and played Louisville in Rupp Arena or UK in the Center, like it's still a neutral site match, but obviously one team's going to be pretty heavily advantaged. But if we want to talk about home matches, the unfortunate thing for Louisville is that after they play Texas in Fort Worth, they are going to Omaha and playing Creighton.
Yeah, the little tournament that there would looks like they've got 3 games? Or?
Yeah, they're playing Creighton, University of Northern Iowa, which hello, nice to see you again after you almost knocked us out of the NCAA tournament, and also then player returned to, why is her name escaping me, Jared? You'll know it off the top of your head. Peyton Peterson. Yep, thank you. Returns to play for her mother there, so I'm sure there won't be any residual feelings about that. That one's gonna be tough too, and you're maybe coming off of, I mean, legitimately, maybe you're coming off of 2 losses in a row, and then you're playing a very hungry UNI team still away from home, and that's not great. So they're gonna do that, and then they got to play Rice, who is no slouch. Obviously not quite as good as the other 2, but it's still a game you're going to have to watch out for because you're still away from home. And then you come back and you play Kentucky. Like, jeez.
Yep. But some of the days
6-game stretches are rough.
They're playing a lot of weird days. Typically, you don't see Monday matches in volleyball, and you've got even an ACC Monday match in there, and then you typically don't see Thursday. Well, they're playing Kentucky on a Thursday. There's a lot of Monday, Thursday matches this year, when typically you see Friday, Sunday, with the occasional Wednesday going on. So, odd schedule format. I'm not sure if it's what they're trying to work around in this.
Once they move into the conference schedule, you get a lot more of what we traditionally see. There is a Thursday match
with
against
Florida State or
that's
something.
that's later, and
But
it's weird. You play Notre Dame back to back on a Wednesday, Saturday. So that's odd. It's really early in the schedule, which I assume is they're trying to avoid Sundays and avoid
I do
Saturdays, where they're
wonder.
trying not to match up against football.
Yeah, without checking, I know UofL's got 2 home Friday football games this year, and I kind of wonder if maybe that Thursday Florida State volleyball match, maybe there's a Friday football game or something you're looking at. But then you get to the end of the season, and volleyball plays Stanford on the Saturday after Thanksgiving. If I read it correctly, well,
Yes.
That's also the day's home football, UofL UK, and it doesn't always add up. But I think a situation like that is you don't really have much of a choice when you get to working around Thanksgiving schedule.
Yeah, that's the same. So that's the same end of the season as UofL had last year, just inverted. Last season they played Pitt at home on the Wednesday before Thanksgiving, and then they hit the road, played Stanford on the road the Saturday after Thanksgiving. So you invert that. Now they're gonna go to Pittsburgh the Wednesday before Thanksgiving, and then come home and play Stanford that Saturday afterwards. But yeah,
I thought they played on Black Friday last year, but I could have been off on my dates.
Oh, maybe it was Black Friday instead of Saturday. But either way, kind of a similar. Yeah, you're right, because they didn't play on the same day as the UK game. But yeah, that opening, I just have to go back to the opening because it's brutal. After you get a nice kind of easy start in the Cardinal Classic, then you are playing Illinois, Texas, Creighton, UNI, Rice, Kentucky over an 11-day stretch. Goodness gracious.
And one of the things that I'm looking at on this is road challenges, and I see 2 of them right here that look pretty rough for me. The first one being in early October, where the Cards have to go play Friday at California in Berkeley, and then Sunday they have to play Stanford. That seems like a pretty tough schedule really early off the bat there, but they do have to do it. And then moving back down to the end of October, they go to Duke and play on a Friday. That Sunday they're playing North Carolina, and then they have to go to South Bend the following Wednesday. Wow. Both of those look like streaks that...
yeah, right after a very easy home weekend against SMU and Pitt, right? Like,
yeah, it's going to have Dan scratching his head, although Pitt at one time, still has to be considered a volleyball powerhouse.
oh, I was being very sarcastic when I said that SMU and Pitt are an easy home weekend. That is not pleasant.
No, there's nothing easy about that weekend, guys. So, in any event, going to be fun on all 3 sports, and certainly we look forward to all 4. We'll give you as much coverage as we can on all those, between photography and people in the seats or on Media Row reporting on the action. So let's let the fall happen. Let's bring it in. I'm ready to go. And that'll segue us into our final thoughts. So certainly we've discussed so much today, guys, but let's go ahead and move into final thoughts and see what you guys have on your minds today. Jared, let's go ahead and kick our final thoughts off with you.
Yeah, I'm almost to the point I'm ready for our fall sports to start up. It is nice to be able to take a break a little bit in the summertime, but give me a few more weeks and I'm going to be itching to get back out on the various pitches and courts and take pictures.
And certainly a fun time for you and I as well, as we tend to depend on what the game is and where it is. We spend a lot of time, you on the floor and me on Media Row, covering these matches. So it should be some fun. And of course, we'll have Case up there for quite a few of them as well. Case, your final thoughts?
I'm going to have to start getting familiar with UofL soccer numbers. So the sooner that they can put the numbers on the newcomers for the roster, that'd be beautiful, since the women's soccer team now has 2 sets of incoming freshman twins. Awesome.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah. It's going to be kind of hard on you. And what if they put all 4 out there at the same time?
Fortunately, both pairs are non-identical. So I got that going for me. But at least I think they are. The The Morris sisters don't look like identical twins, but they could be. The Pete sisters definitely are not. But yeah,
One's taller than the other. The last I remember seeing a picture
of the Petes, yeah.
on
So
the Peach, yeah.
they'll be a little bit easier to tell apart. I would say that positionally, the Morrises will be easier to tell apart because one plays offense, one plays defense. But with Karen Ferguson days, who knows? So
Kind of like Arnold Schwarzenegger and Danny DeVito, huh?
yeah, right. Yeah.
But final thoughts out of me. I'm going to agree with these guys here. I'm very, very excited to see the fall sports come in. It's been kind of a long, kind of grueling summer for me, going through some things and basically having to do some medical procedures and stuff like that. I am still actively looking for, a kidney. So if anybody wants to donate one to me, that'd be great. I'm working now with the IU. Went up and saw their kidney center up there, and I'm very excited about what they can do for me, and hopefully that's going to work out a little better than Vanderbilt did for me as far as getting a kidney. But the one thing that I'm very, very secure in knowing that if I'm out for any period of time, that I've got three very, very, very good writers still on his staff that will handle things for me when I'm gone, and that makes a big difference to me. That from the early days when it was just basically me and a couple women doing this site, and Daryl was not one of them. My, how we've grown since then. But we look forward to it. We're going to give you all the reporting we can on it. And if you've got any suggestions on what we should be covering, drop us an email at cardinalcouple@twc.com. That's cardinalcouple at T as in Tom, W as in Wilson, C as in Charlie, or Time Warner Cable, if you want to remember it that way, .com. And appreciate you listening. Glad to be with you today. That's right, it's right around the corner of fall sports. And to end as we normally like to, everybody have a great day and go Cards.